Now, as you can imagine, we can just select these as well and make these an embroidery object. Now we have a complete design, let's say, a motif, if you will, that if we wanted to paste it in a pattern or something, let's say cover a whole pillow full of these, we could do that. But what's neat about embroidery objects is that they are intelligent because they're all based on the original objects within objects, within objects, within objects. So if we resize this, you can see that everything updates. You can see there's only basically 3 stitches in the stem right now. And if I were to resize this to something larger, and then I played the movie, you would see that there's now more than 3. There's like 7. So basically, they're intelligent objects. They're completely updating to the proper stitch count and density depending on the size. And this makes these extremely powerful. Now, let's go ahead and talk about how you would do colors with these, because with embroidery objects, basically the first level of the object is where the color is determined. Beyond that, below objects beyond that, like the individual leaves, those are 2 steps or 3 steps down below, and so it's only 1 step down below that determines the color. So we go in ahead and go into this original object. And we want each of the leaf stems to be a different color, which you wouldn't normally do in real nature, but we'll do it here for the explanation. We're going to change the colors of the leaves to different colors. Let's see, let's get some blue in there. So we got, well, that's not really yellow, but we have all the colors of the color wheel. So we go in here and now those colors are represented in the embroidery object, but they're only 1 level deep, so only 1 layer, or if you will, just 1 level beyond the embroidery object. Now, for example, in this case, these are now 1 layer. So if I went into this embroidery object and did edit the leaf here color, let's say, just change that to yellow, and I go back, you'll see that this is changed to yellow, but that's only 1 level deep in here, and this, but if I go back to the highest level, you'll see that it'll still be that color, because the color only gets affected 1 layer deep. Now, when we stitch this out, these will stitch in the order that they are in the object. But if we wanted to, let's say we had 2 leaves that were red, and we wanted to do the red first, we're going to go in the object and change this leaf and the green leaf to the same color. When we go back, they're not in the same order there. So when we stitch them out, they actually stitch out in the order that they were in the design. Let's speed this up. You see it goes around and does it in order in the design. Now that's sometimes not desirable because you would have a thread change. You could reorder them in the object itself, or if you select the object and you say group colors, now when you actually do stitch it out, it'll do them in the group, the colors that exist in the design. So it's going to do the tan first, it's going to do all the reds, and then it'll do the blue. Now what's neat about this group colors feature is if we have 2 of these in the design, let's say we have 2 of these, then this is also group colors, so basically it's going to do all the colors within the design first. Now you don't always want that because you might have some registration issues with the other colors once you get to that. But you know, it's up to you as a digitizer to decide how that's done. So you can see it did all the tan first. It's going to do all the reds next. Even though these are 2 separate objects, they're being stitched out by group colors. You can see this will be quite powerful once you figure out how to use it to your advantage. And the last feature I'd like to show you is the ability for these objects to be embedded on your computer. So basically, if you change one object, they all change together. So let's go ahead and make this object. We'll just delete one of these objects for now. And we're going to make this saved onto the computer. And what this does is it basically makes, let's just call this test sample or something. It makes it link to the file. So when you change this object, all the rest will be changed as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this again. And paste it somewhere. Now, if I go ahead and go into the object, now the objects are linked by virtue of link to file name, and then there's a file name here. Now, I use the Save Object to File button, but you could also open a file and insert it in your document. So if you had a library of files, you could do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go in this object, and we're going to change everything back to green, because really leaves are green. They're not multicolored like this, but that's okay. So let's change all the objects to green. And then when we go back, what's going to happen is all the objects will be updated. This, not only this object that's green, it's doing its work. It's a fairly complicated design. We have 14,000 stitches right now, so there's a lot to calculate. But you can see that it's now, since they're now linked to the file on disk, both of them have been updated. So that can be really powerful as well. So this is basically the overview of embroidery objects. Please try them, play around with them. I find that they can be very powerful.